Barrow, in those days, they were operators and announcers. Very few people were literally doing like you do now, what we do here. So Johnny Barrow and I and Pancho, we planned. Johnny Barrow had a shop in Garner Street. And we planned that Pancho was not going to be there the next day. So I would be able to slip in. Because by that time I had gotten accustomed to public speaking and all of that. So that Saturday, I was at the station and Johnny Barrow went to told the program director, Woodworth McAndrew, that Johnny called and reported sick, so nobody's here to do the program. And Woodworth said, well, we got to find somebody. And Johnny Barrow said, look in here, look this boy here, give him a chance. So Woodworth McAndrew, in his typical folkloric way, he said, he called me and he said, you got up on the radio? That's because he was like an Alan Kenty type, folkloric.
Yeah.
And he said, you got up on the radio? I said, yeah. All right, you can try it, but if you mess up, you ain't gonna come back in here. You're gonna come back in the gates, right? And so he said, all right, but you gotta go talk to the GM. The GM at the time was the late Terry Holder.
Terry, yes.
And I went up to Terry, and Terry, very nice and cordial, said, I'm gonna give you a chance because these guys have fought for you. In fact, Johnny Barrow was an icon of the station. Johnny Barrow was the only person who recorded Bob's Burnham. Anytime Burnham had to make a speech on the radio, the only person who he dealt with was Johnny Barrow. So
you have to be good.
Johnny was very good, and he had a lot of influence. So he said, okay, if these guys vote to you. And I went and I did the program, and that's where it started. And I remember, sometimes when you look back and you think about some of the challenges that went with it, I think after the second week or the third week, because then I started doing the program. Yes, I got the opportunity to do the program. Because it was a Saturday and Pancho really never wanted to come in on a Saturday to do a 1 hour program. So I started doing it. And I remember the late Shirley P. Ridley was Minister of Information. And I was playing Bob Marley's song, Black Race. And she called me, she told me to take it off. And I kind of argued with her, and I stretched it out until the song ended. And then I ended, and by the time she was finished, she suspended me. I got suspended for 2 weeks. For not doing the program for 2 weeks because it was then considered I was rude, not to adhere to what the minister had demanded. Not like now when some ministers walk in the studio and tell announcers take it off and all of that. No, it doesn't work that way. Because the thing is, when you are in the studio, and that is why I like this environment and this atmosphere, because you're alone in here, and you have to have your own pulse and the feeling of what is it you want to share with listeners. So it doesn't even start with you, you're just the medium that is sending the music, the information and everything to people. So people must be able to sit down and feel as though they are right here with you. And I tell people that all the time, and if you could do that, then it's easy because people may have different challenges going through the day of their lives. Somebody may wake up a morning with no coffee, no tea, no breakfast, and you have to be able to bring that person to a position of comfort. They may be driving, and in Guyana now it's a hazard with the amount of vehicles. You have to be able to relax that person from their frustration of driving in a congested city. So all those things you need to take into consideration, and that is what makes you a good morning or midday or afternoon person. And you could see it in people. I remember chatting with Ron, our afternoon guy, and I realized Ron, it's a strange for him to get in here in the mornings. Ron is just not a morning person, but he's good in the afternoon. What he does. Deborah is even good at what she does in the afternoon. You fit into the good morning with this mellow style of yours, and that's what's good. So that is what is important, when you could identify people and their skill set and where they could fit in and how much it means to the listeners. And that is why we've been able to acquire this huge list of followers all over the world, and I could boast about it because we see the statistics here. So it's been a journey, but the journey continues. Many people were a part of the journey, and like I said, when you look at where you started to where you are now, You know, it's been many years, but I've done things to help me to get to where I am. You know, getting the opportunity to start at radio and then obvious leaving and going abroad and enhance my studies. You know, so that in itself was something pretty good. I was able to work in a first world environment. So I did a stint in Miami, you know, Win FM, and not Win FM, but WBCG in Miami, 880 AM. And other stations, WIB, which was the flagship station for Caribbean broadcasting in New York. So you develop that skill and that set where, you know, it was easy to move along.
And looking back at when you were young in the profession and in comparison to what you see today, what would you like to say to young people like me and others who may want to get into the real profession and not, as you spoke about earlier, the DJ kind of thing, you know, and get them in that frame of mind?
Well, first of all, in the early days, you hadn't a choice of radio stations like we have now. So if somebody hears something you don't like it, another person is waiting to grab you. You only had one radio outfit, right? You had Radio Demerara, DTBS, or Radio Demerara, GBC, that kind of stuff. So, and of course, there were lots and lots of people who were in the broadcasting world. And so, you have to really remain straight. You know, you wouldn't mess up with programming. You did not leave.
You have to be on the ball.
You always have to be cognizant. You know, I started off on what people will call the graveyard shift on Sundays. Sundays when always the big time announcers like Ron Robinson.
Taking a rest.
They're home relaxing. You know, you have to go work and you have to sit down and listen to Indian programming. That's how come I developed an admiration for Indian music. Because Sunday afternoons, you had to, even though the programs were recorded, you had to have the actual records. All right, you have to have the actual records there in the event that they burst. So you had to learn to pronounce the words, and you had to listen to. So you couldn't even get out of the studio because you're hoping the tape don't burst. But you had to do it, so, you know, and that is what helps. But getting back to your question of young people understanding, first of all, you have to have a love for the industry. If you don't have a love, it is a different thing than if you pluck somebody, tell them, go sit in the A chair and announce. They'll talk. But if you send somebody to broadcast or announce, in many instances, and you have to follow the script and the guidelines, which are essential to quality broadcasting, then you wouldn't have a problem. And then you have to be able to deliver. You know, many people believe you could just come and sit in front of a microphone and you could read and you could say, yes, everything is good, you know. I could go in front of the microphone and I could say, hey, Alicia, I'm wearing a blue shirt this morning. Yeah, I could see you wearing a blue shirt this morning. But then I could say in the same breath, in order to attract your attention, I could say, you know, Alicia, this blue shirt that I'm wearing, it tells you that I'm supposed to say something more, or you're waiting for me to say something more because I've developed or established your attention. So those are some of the things, you know, and because we don't have any major formal radio or announcement broadcasting programming going on, that's why we find people lose interest in listening to young announcers and TV and news anchors because they haven't been trained, you know. Pronunciation is one. I spoke earlier this morning about UG may have a communications program, but having a communications diploma or a first degree doesn't make you a proficient broadcaster.
And that's a big gap there. We see it all the time.
That's the story. Everybody comes out of the UG and they have their communications diploma. Why have a diploma in communications?
But actually put them to do the work, it's a different ball.
But the thing though, and I don't know because I didn't study at the UG, but the thing is, you have to be able to